do not move. So I had to sign these papers while I was in pain. I was just like, come give me the drugs. Just give me the drugs. Just give me the drugs.
High volume.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Seriah for those of you who do not know me, and in today's video I am going to be filming my labor and delivery story. I have a special guest who's making his grand appearance. My son bun August. He's in a crabby mood, which is why he keeps grunting. But he's here and he's kind of what the story is about. So welcome baby August. And yeah, so today I'm going to be sharing my labor and delivery story. If you haven't checked out my labor and delivery vlog, you should definitely go watch that first. It'll provide a lot of context to that video because I just filmed what happened, but I didn't really explain things because I was literally in labor. So this video will hopefully provide insight as to what was going on during my birth, labor process, and yeah, just if you're a first-time mom or you're pregnant and you kind of want to know what an induction is like, I could share a little bit of insight. Of course, every birth, every delivery is different. This was just my experience, and yes, first and foremost, my labor and delivery was a scheduled induction, so I did not have a crazy story about my water breaking or anything kind of crazy go on. Yeah, I was scheduled to be induced at 38 weeks, and the reason for that was because I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. So I was tested twice for that. The first time I was tested was at 12 weeks, and I think it had to do with my weight, but I also think it had to do with the fact that my dad has diabetes. This is my biological dad, so I think they wanted to test me early. The first time I was tested, it came back negative, and so then I went on, and then around 20 to 22 weeks I had my second ultrasound. In my second ultrasound, my baby boy, he was measuring bigger than they would like, and my amniotic fluid was high.
28 weeks one day, you have 2 weeks ahead, 2 pounds, 10 ounces, growing 98 percentiles.
You said 10 pounds?
Wow. See,
No, 2 pounds. Isn't he supposed to be like 1 pound at this point?
Right, 2 pounds, 10 ounces. And the baby way too big. And you have to be very careful. You still have amniotic fluids are high. So you have to avoid the gestational diabetes.
Okay.
So no sugar, exercise, drink lots of water.
So so I could slow down his growth, pretty much.
If they don't rule out your gestational diabetes. If they rule out, you say, hey, no, nothing, don't worry about it. And then
They already tested me for that. So are they going to test me again?
They test you?
At like 10 weeks.
Only
They tested me earlier. It's when you drink the drink, right?
Right.
Yeah, they had me do that early.
So you didn't have any gestation that
Not then, no. So when they test me again?
They usually test like 28 weeks.
Okay, yeah, they tested me the first time, like early.
Yeah, because your amniotic fluids high.
High, okay.
This time your also amniotic fluids high.
High, okay.
So
well, then.
better than last time's 28, this time's 24, but you're still high and your baby growing too fast.
And because of those two things, and he was like weighing in the 99th percentile, they decided to test me again for gestational diabetes, and of course it came back positive. I was extremely devastated about that, and so from then on, for the remainder of my pregnancy, I had to go to a special doctor to get an ultrasound weekly. I had to change my diet. I was put on insulin at night because my blood sugar would spike in the morning. It was a mess. It was something that I did not like doing. I hated every second of it, but here we are. and my baby boy is healthy. With all of that being said, me being induced early and having to go through gestational diabetes, other than that, I had a pretty uncomplicated pregnancy and an uncomplicated birth and delivery. So if you are diagnosed with gestational diabetes yourself, or maybe you have, what's it called, the high blood preeclampsia or things like that, it doesn't mean that you're gonna have this catastrophic birth story or events or anything like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that will happen for you. Okay, on to the induction. So my date scheduled to be induced was August 19th, that Monday. My doctor told me I would get induced that day and that I would possibly deliver in 2 to 3 days. I was like, what? 2 to 3 days? I'm gonna be in labor? And she said more than likely, because it's my first birth ever. 2, I was starting off not even being dilated. Like my last check was at 37 or 38 weeks, I think. And I was not even dilated. Like, I was having a lot of, what are those contractions called? Braxton Hicks. I was having a lot of Braxton Hicks contractions, and I was thinking I was getting dilated because he was just like literally sitting on my pelvis. I went for my last and final OB appointment, and I was 0 centimeters dilated. So she was telling me I was gonna more than likely be in labor for 2 to 3 days. And so I was just like, okay. And so August 19th came, which was that Monday. I was put in my room because I was not dilated. They moved me to the high risk area of the hospital of labor and delivery. So I moved to a different room, which I think you saw in the previous video. So update, I'm in a different gown. I had to get moved to a different room because I'm not dilated at all still. So they moved me. They moved me to a different room, and that's where I labored for the majority of the pregnancy. And to be honest with you, contractions were weird. Like, I was already having contractions that were already like 9 minutes apart without them doing anything. But I was just not dilating. Apparently, they've been 9 minutes apart, and they haven't been painful. They've just been uncomfortable. And at that point, I had no pain. So that morning, they moved me to the room, and it wasn't until roughly 12 o'clock when they started me on the induction medicine. We took the first dose of the induction medicine. I don't know what it was. And basically, she said that my contractions before the medicine were consistent, but now they are inconsistent, but they've increased in intensity. And I feel them coming more often now. I'm like, ooh, okay. But it's still not like super painful. I can talk through them. So they put me on Cytotec, is what it's called. And what Cytotec is supposed to do, it's supposed to thin out your cervix to make it easier to dilate. And then they put you on Pitocin if needed. And the Pitocin is supposed to ramp up your contractions. I think that's correct. Somebody can correct me if that's incorrect. So around noon, they put me on the Cytotec, and I was taking those pills every 2 hours, and I was supposed to take 10 of them. So when I started taking the pills, they also had to check my finger, like prick me also every like 2 to 3 hours for my blood sugar because I had gestational diabetes. They wanted to make sure my blood sugar was normal. They had me strapped up to the monitor at all times to check baby's heart rate. And they came in and checked on me like habitually because of gestational diabetes. I was supposed to eat, and they made me eat the hospital meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner kind of thing. And then they brought me snacks in between. Like I was still supposed to continue my snacks. So when you're on gestational diabetes, the way it goes is you're supposed to have your breakfast like first thing in the morning. Like you're supposed to fast, take your fasting sugar. Then you have your breakfast, then 2 hours later you take your sugar, then you can have a snack, then 2 hours later take that sugar, then you have lunch, then after lunch another snack, then dinner, so forth, so on. And then they brought me some crackers. So during labor, they had me continuing the same process, whereas I think with a typical delivery, like if you don't have anything going on, you're kind of not supposed to eat, but if you have gestational diabetes, they made me eat. Pretty much what started at 12 o'clock, and then from 12 until around 8 o'clock p.m. I just kept eating my snacks, eating my lunch, dinner. They kept taking my blood. They checked me to see if I was dilated, and I still was not dilated. And at that point, my contractions were intensifying, but they were becoming inconsistent on the side attack. And at that point, I had not felt any pain so far. So that was like day 1 on August 19th. So update, we just took the next dosage of the pill. I don't even know what pill I'm taking. I'll find that out next time. So then on that night, literally that night, I want to say around 8 o'clock was when I had 4 tablets of the induction medicine. That's when I started to feel pain, and it felt unbearable. So they checked to see if I was dilated, and I had only dilated to like half of a centimeter. And so they gave me this other medicine. It wasn't an epidural. It was some kind of something like through an IV, and you were only allowed to get it 3 times. So they gave it to me that night, and it was allowed, and then I was able to sleep. So I ended up sleeping through the night, and throughout the night they came in every 2 hours to give me the pill. So it's exactly 9 o'clock p.m. Don't know if I'm dilated. We've been taking my induction medicine. I'm on the 4th dose, and I've been having contractions, but they're not painful or like super painful. So I think by the morning time, I had like my 6th or 7th dose of the induction medicine. And so that morning, they had gave me the medicine again through the IV. That wasn't the epidural, but it felt like an epidural, and it only lasted for like a few hours. And then by then I had the 3rd dose of that, and they kept asking me if I wanted the epidural, and I was like, no, I don't want the epidural until I'm dilated, because I don't want it to wear off. And so they left. They checked to see if I was dilated again, and I still had not progressed at all whatsoever. Like at all. So by that point on August 20th around like 8 a.m. I started to get worried if I was going to have to get a C-section, because I was not making any progress whatsoever. It's currently 11:15. Still not dilated. Contractions every 1 to 2 minutes, but not dilated. I'm starting to get discouraged. On the side attack in terms of dilation or anything was happening, but my contractions were ramping up. Like the contractions were now at this point 1 to 2 minutes apart, but I was just not dilating. So then around 12 in the afternoon, I was giving like, I think it was like the 9th pill or whatever, the side attack. I had eaten lunch and I was feeling good, and then that's when everything just fell apart. Finally got a bouncy ball. Making a huge difference. These contractions are insane. Like, they're insane. Like, everything fell apart, and I can insert a clip here. They gave me a bouncy ball, and I was sitting on the bouncy ball for like an hour. I'm so uncomfortable. The bouncy ball's not even helping. And I had eaten lunch, and then they came in and gave me the 10th pill, the final one of the side attack. It was over from there.
1 hour later.
I said I wouldn't cry, but this shit hurts. It's is not for the weak. Oh my god. Oh. Like, that pill is what did it for me. So when they gave me that 10th pill and I was on the bouncy ball, my contractions went from being somewhat painful and close together to just being unbearable. Like, I didn't even know that those were contractions. So like with me, the contractions I was experiencing before, I have him nurse because he's definitely cranky. So the contractions that I was experiencing prior to the 10th pill, it was weird because they felt like Braxton Hicks. Like, I wasn't in pain, I was just uncomfortable. They were bearable, I could talk through them. I was vlogging and I was just wondering when everything was going to start to kick off and go into gear. But when that 10th pill hit, like, it literally took 10 pills for everything to just like take off. It was like, it wasn't even a buildup of pain. Like, it was like, it went from like a 2 out of 10 to a 11 out of 10 instantly. And I started crying. Like, I was like, this is like the worst pain I felt in my life. Like, the contraction pain that I felt, I still can't even describe it. Like, many people describe it as feeling like you gotta poop, to feeling like period pain, to I cannot recall what that pain felt like, and I can't even begin to describe to you what it felt like. But all I can tell you was I felt like I was literally dying. So once they gave me that 10th pill, I was like, look, I need to get an epidural. Like, I don't know what it's going to take, but I need an epidural now. I don't care if I'm dilated. I don't care if I'm not, because this crap, I'm not going to make it through. So when the doctor came in and I was feeling like my pain was a 10 out of 10, he came to check and see if I was dilated. When I tell you I screamed at the top of my lungs, I screamed. Like, he was telling me to calm down. Like, that was honestly worse than the actual pain of the contraction, was him checking my cervix. And I was still not anywhere near dilated. I was still half a centimeter, even with all of that pain and the contractions happening. It was the worst pain I felt in my life. So at that point, they said, we're just going to go ahead and give you the epidural, get her ready. They had to put me in a wheelchair, and they willed me to get the epidural. So my mom came inside the room with me to get my epidural, and I was scared. I don't know what. That was like the scariest part of my life. The anesthesiologist was good. So when I went into the room to get my epidural, they came to me, explained all of the risks, which freaked me out. Like, I could possibly die. I could possibly become paralyzed. All of these different risks or things that could happen, which freaked me out. I was just like, let me just, yeah, I hear you. Just let me sign the papers and let's move on. So I had to sign these papers while I was in pain. I was just like, come give me the drugs. Just give me the drugs. Just give me the drugs. Then the anesthesiologist came in. And next thing I know, there was these two nurses in front of me. One of them was holding my face. The other one was like right next to her saying, focus, focus. They were telling me not to move. I had to sit at the edge of the bed and then bend over. And I was like holding her hands. And then she was holding my face and saying, just look in my eyes and just focus on me. Don't move. Do not move. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Then the anesthesiologist gave me the numbing medicine and said, don't move. And then I moved, and when I moved, I freaked out, and she was like, I told you not to move. And the next thing you know, I was like, just stop, I need a break. And then she was like, we can't have a break. And the anesthesiologist was very clear. She was like, if you tell me to stop, I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna keep going. And then my mom was like, she's gonna stop. No, give her the drugs. Give her the medicine. Seriah, don't move. It was the scariest thing. Because literally at first it was just the two nurses in front of me, the anesthesiologist, and somebody else with her. Next thing I know, I look up and there's like 15 people in the room. And I was like, why is there so much happening? And it was freaking me out. So then I was just like sitting there just like waiting. That process took way longer than I thought. Honestly, the whole process of getting an epidural was like a 0 out of 10. I hated every second of that moment. It was the scariest thing that ever happened to me in life. I was just praying to God I did not get a contraction in the middle of her doing that, because I literally could not move. Like I literally kept moving every single time I got a contraction. But fortunately, the Lord was on my side. I did not get a contraction. They gave me the epidural, and I was freaked out that I was already paralyzed. And it was a 10 out of 10 after that. Like, literally after I got that epidural, it kicked in immediately. I couldn't feel any more contractions whatsoever. And at this point, I think I got the epidural, I want to say around 10 o'clock at night ish. And then around 2 a.m. they checked to see if I was dilated, and I was now 2 centimeters dilated. I was only 2 centimeters dilated when I finally got the next cervical check. You know what? Hey, I don't care how long this takes. These drugs are hitting. The epidural was my saving grace, because I would not have made it. 2 a.m. August 21st, I was 2 centimeters dilated, and then I ended up sleeping through like the rest of the night. They just came in to check on me to make sure the epidural was fine. I would feel like random pain here and there, and then all I would have to do was just shoot it up, and then we was good to go. And I just kept doing that the whole entire time. And so then after that, let me see what happened. Okay, so around 6:30 in the morning, they came in and she checked to see if I was dilated. And it turns out I was officially 9 centimeters dilated around 6 a.m. So then after that happened, they said, we're going to start preparing you for birth. So I was good. Like I said, I started to get nervous just because I've never given birth before. But overall, I felt good. The epidural kicked in. That was like the best thing I could have ever gotten. And I was just waiting at this point. And so then we just kept waiting and waiting. Then the doctor came to check and see if I was dilated. So the doctor came to check out and see if I was dilated, I want to say around 9 a.m. And at this point, the doctor said, you are 11 centimeters dilated. You are ready to push. However, baby was still high up. So they said, we want baby to fall. So they ended up sitting me up all the way to let baby drop down low. So I was already dilated. I could technically start pushing, but they told me that they weren't going to let me push because they didn't want me to be pushing for hours. So they wanted it to they wanted me to basically just have the baby come down on his own, so that way I didn't have to push that long. So that was around like 10 a.m. and so then I continued to just labor for 2 more hours. I was 11 centimeters dilated, just waiting for him to fall. And then finally, when they basically said, when you start to feel like the pressure is too much, like it's just unbearable at this point, like the pressure, then we're going to start pushing. So it was 12 o'clock. The pressure was getting hot. Like, it wasn't painful, but it was just uncomfortable. Like, at that point, I just knew, like, he was ready. Like, even if he wasn't ready, I was ready. Like, I was over it. Like, I was sitting up and it literally felt like I had to poop. Like, I was like, okay, it is time. Noon, or I want to say it wasn't noon, it was 11 o'clock. So I don't know what time it was. To be honest, I can't remember. All I know is the nurses came and we started pushing. So it was just the nurses. So I kept pushing and they were telling me how to push. But the epidural, like I said, I couldn't feel nothing. So I wasn't sure if I was pushing correctly or if I wasn't. And so they got me a mirror. So I was able to look inside of the mirror and see. And they were like, just keep pushing. And then eventually his head, you could start to see his hair, which was like the coolest thing ever. And that gave me the motivation to continue to push. And so when I saw his hair, we just kept pushing. And then finally, they said I was pushing for like an hour or so. After that hour came, it was like a pop. And then a whole bunch of fluid came out. It was kind of gross. But after that pop, they were like, okay, it's time to go get the doctor. So then the doctor came and he was like, oh yeah, get ready. You only got like 1 or 2 more pushes left. And so then that's when the doctor came. I pushed literally 2 more times and this man popped right on out. And that was pretty much it. He popped out and he weighed approximately 8 pounds, 15.6 ounces, borderline 9-pound baby. Ended up getting a 2nd degree tear, but I didn't feel none of it because I had the epidural. He stitched me up, and then after he stitched me up, they put him on my chest. We did skin to skin. So they had me do skin to skin with him immediately. And when I tell you, I was so disconnected. Like, I couldn't even believe I gave birth. Like, I really couldn't even believe it. I didn't cry. I didn't say anything. I was just in shock that I had actually given birth. But yeah, throughout the whole entire labor and delivery process, his heartbeat never dropped. He was good the whole time. I was the only one in pain. Like, he never went through any kind of distress. Like, he came out super healthy. And then when they set me up to postpartum, they, you know, like I said, they stitched me up. They gave me everything I needed. They came to check my sugars some more for, I think, like that evening, like the rest of the day. And they checked his blood sugars to make sure they were normal, to make sure he was fed well, to make sure he didn't become hypoglycemic. And he was fine. He was good. He was healthy. He didn't have any jaundice or anything. Like, we were good to go. And then we stayed there for like 3 days, and then we were discharged. So ultimately, I ended up having the most healthy birth, labor, delivery I possibly could, despite having gestational diabetes. We didn't have any serious complications whatsoever. And yeah, honestly, everything that happened that was kind of like scary happened after I gave birth. Like, a few days later, I ended up going to the ER. I ended up getting a blood clot, which is a story for another day. But even in that, like, we're good. So yeah, I gave birth to my beautiful healthy boy, and I named him August, and he is like my pride and joy, and that has been my whole pregnancy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you're a first time mommy, or you're pregnant and you're scared and wondering how it's gonna go, you're gonna be just fine. Don't watch too many videos on TikTok or YouTube or anything that's gonna scare you. Everybody has their own birth experience. I would only suggest that you always advocate for yourself. Make sure you ask questions. Make sure you tell the nurses and the doctors when things aren't feeling right. Because sometimes, like, people can discredit your feelings and emotions. Fortunately, with my team, I really appreciated all my nurses and doctors. They always took everything I said seriously. They never made me feel like any kind of way. But I know a lot of situations where people can feel like they aren't being, you know, protected or whatever the case is. So always make sure you advocate for yourself, and make sure you have somebody with you that you trust that can also advocate on your behalf. And yeah, you're gonna have a beautiful birth no matter what. Or even if you don't give birth and you just are curious to know about labor delivery, I hope that you enjoyed this video. And yeah, of course, I'm gonna see you in my next one. Make sure you go check out my labor and delivery vlog if you didn't watch it. Make sure you check out my pregnancy journey and go watch all my pregnancy videos. I'm also currently teaching again, and I've gone back to work. So make sure you check out my postpartum vlogs and me navigating my career now that I am a new mom. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content. And I will catch you in the next one. And also, so will baby August. So say bye-bye. Alright, see you next time. Bye.